Put your hand at the base of your spine right now. Feel that small, hard bump under the skin? That's not just a random bone. That's the leftover blueprint of a tail your body started building and then abruptly canceled, weeks before you were even born. Every human embryo grows one. Yours did. And for millions of years, scientists had absolutely no idea what flipped the switch that made it disappear, until a graduate student's own aching tailbone accidentally cracked open one of the strangest mysteries in human evolution. Here's the part most people never learn. Around 4 to 5 weeks into development, a human embryo grows an actual tail, a genuine structure with its own small set of vertebrae, visibly extending from the spine. For a short window, it looks almost identical to the embryo of a fish, a mouse, or a tailed monkey. Then, over the following weeks, the body quietly reabsorbs it. The cells get repurposed, the structure shrinks, and what's left fuses into 4 or 5 tiny bones at the bottom of your spine, the coccyx, the same bone that makes sitting on a hard bleacher unbearable after a fall. That's not unique to humans. It's true of every single ape on Earth. Gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, us. Not one tail among any of us. And that's genuinely strange, because almost every other vertebrate kept theirs. Fish have tails. Reptiles have tails. The overwhelming majority of mammals have tails. Even most of our closest primate relatives, monkeys, still have them, using them constantly for balance while sprinting along branches, and in the case of some New World monkeys in Central and South America, using a tail strong and dexterous enough to hang their entire body weight from a tree limb, while both hands stay freed. So somewhere around 25 million years ago, the common ancestor of every living ape lost its tail completely, and every descendant species inherited that same tailless body. Scientists could see this clearly in the fossil record. What they couldn't do, for decades, was point to the actual genetic switch that caused it. You can propose plenty of reasonable theories about why evolution might favor losing a tail. Proving the mechanism is a completely different problem. That mechanism finally surfaced because of an injury. Bo Xiao, a graduate student studying genome evolution at NYU's Grossman School of Medicine, had wondered about missing human tails since he was a child. Years later, an injury to his own tailbone brought that old curiosity roaring back. Except this time, he had something his childhood self didn't: access to a massive, newly sequenced library of primate genomes. So he started searching those genomes for any change specific to apes, sitting inside genes already known to control tail development in other animals. That search led him to a gene called TBXT, sometimes known by its protein name, brachyury, which literally translates from Greek as short tail, because mutations in it had already been shown to shorten tails in mice. Inside TBXT, Xiao found something odd. A short, mobile piece of DNA called an ALU element, sitting inside the gene, present in every great ape and completely absent in tailed monkeys. ALU elements are nicknamed jumping genes because they can copy themselves and insert into new spots throughout the genome. They make up roughly 10% of human DNA, and the overwhelming majority of them do essentially nothing noticeable at all. At first, this particular ALU insertion looked like just another one of those harmless passengers. It didn't sit inside the actual coding instructions of the gene, so on the surface, it shouldn't have mattered. But Xia kept looking, and he noticed a second ALU element sitting nearby, one that's present in monkeys and apes alike. Here's the clever part. In apes specifically, these two ALU elements are oriented so that they can fold toward each other and stick together, forming a loop inside the gene's messenger RNA. That loop effectively traps a small stretch of the gene's instructions, exon 6, and causes the cell's machinery to skip right over it while assembling the final protein. The result is a shortened, altered version of the TBXT protein, produced specifically because these two ancient DNA fragments happen to be positioned close enough to pair up. Finding a compelling pattern in a genome comparison is one thing. Proving it actually causes tail loss is another. So the research team, which included NYU's Jeff Boak and Itai Yanai as senior co-authors, engineered that same exon-skipping effect directly into mice. The mice that expressed both the full-length and the shortened version of the protein, mimicking what naturally happens in apes, were born with shortened tails or no tail at all. But here's the twist inside the twist, the part that turns this from a tidy discovery into something genuinely unsettling. The mutation didn't come free. A meaningful portion of those same engineered mice also developed spinal cord malformations resembling neural tube defects, the same broad category of condition responsible for spina bifida in humans, a condition that today affects roughly 1 in every 1,000 newborns. In other words, the exact genetic change that likely helped strip the tail off our ancestors' bodies may have arrived bundled with a real, measurable risk to how the spinal cord forms. Not a clean evolutionary upgrade. A trade-off, quietly carried inside the human genome for 25 million years, that still echoes today in why doctors push folate so aggressively during early pregnancy. Which raises the obvious question. If losing the tail came with a genuine cost, why did it spread through the entire ape lineage anyway, and stay there, permanently, across every single descendant species? The answer likely isn't genetics at all. It's movement. Around the time apes were losing their tails, their entire style of getting through the trees was changing. Monkeys largely move on top of branches, running and leaping, using a long tail as a counterbalance the way a tightrope walker uses a pole. Apes shifted toward something different, suspensory locomotion, swinging beneath branches using their arms, a style you can still watch gibbons perform today at genuinely alarming speed. A trailing tail is far less useful when you're hanging under a branch instead of balancing on top of one. It may have even become a liability, something to get tangled in mid-swing rather than something helping you stay upright. And that shift in movement didn't stop maturing once apes came down from the trees. Many researchers believe that a body already restructured around vertical climbing and arm-supported movement, rather than four-legged running stabilized by a tail, was better positioned for what happened next in the hominin lineage. Increasingly upright posture, and eventually, full bipedalism. A tiny, accidental pairing of two mobile DNA fragments, landing in exactly the wrong or exactly the right spot inside a single gene, may have quietly nudged the entire trajectory of human evolution toward walking on two legs, and toward hands that were finally free for everything that came after. There's one more detail worth sitting with. Extremely rare cases still appear in medical literature today of babies born with a small soft tissue growth at the base of the spine, sometimes called a vestigial human tail, without actual vertebrae inside it. These cases are uncommon and typically resolve with simple surgical removal, but they're a genuine reminder that the ancient instructions for building a tail haven't fully vanished from your genome. They're still in there, silent, occasionally slipping past the override that's been running for 25 million years. So next time you shift your weight on a hard chair and feel that small bone protest, remember what you're actually touching. Not a random leftover with no story attached, but the final trace of a body part your ancestors relied on for millions of years, switched off by two pieces of mobile DNA that happened to fold toward each other at exactly the right moment, carrying a hidden cost that evolution decided was worth paying anyway. If this genuinely surprised you, drop a single word in the comments. Tailbone. And if stories like this, where one accidental fold in a gene quietly rewrites the future of an entire species, are your thing, there's a lot more still buried in your own DNA waiting to be found.